Hello friends, today, we are going to talk about the book Rest, Why You Get More Done When You Work Less by Soojung-Kim Pang. James was always a hard-working individual. His routine was set: wake up early, stay busy at work all day, and go to bed exhausted at night. He worked in an advertising company where new projects and deadlines were a daily affair. But James never complained. He believed that the more he worked, the faster success would come knocking at his door. One day, his friend Liam gifted him a book titled Rest, Why You Get More Done When You Work Less. James chuckled and said, "What's this? A book on rest? Have you found a new way to waste time?" Liam smiled lightly and replied, "Just read it. It might actually help you. Anyway, you're always buried in work. Don't you ever feel like taking a break?" James joked, "Taking a break means falling behind everyone else. Understand the competition, Liam." Liam didn't argue and just said, "Read it once and let me know what you think." James placed the book on his desk, and for days, he didn't have time to even open it. But one night, after finishing office work at 11 p.m., he felt unusually tired. He thought, "Let's read something different. Let's see what great wisdom Liam has handed me." As he opened the book, his eyes landed on the first chapter: Rest and work are partners. He thought, what an odd statement. How can rest and work be partners? But his curiosity was piqued, and he began to read. Author Soojung-Kim Pang wrote in a very engaging style. He explained that rest doesn't mean escaping work, it's actually a way to boost productivity. He gave several examples of great musicians, athletes, and writers. James remembered hearing as a child that Beethoven came up with his best ideas during walks, but he had never taken it seriously. The author explained that when we rest, our mind consciously relaxes, but subconsciously, it processes information. For example, if you're unable to solve a complicated problem, stepping away and doing something else for a while can lead to new solutions when you return. This is called creative problem solving. James paused his reading and thought, is this really true? But I've always believed that work means working continuously. How can resting increase productivity? His curiosity grew, and he continued reading. The author also mentioned that high achievers always maintain a balance between intense work and deep rest. This is their ultimate secret to success. James recalled how his team members at the office often suggested, "James, take a break," but he would always decline, thinking breaks were just a waste of time. Now, he began to realize he might have misunderstood. That night, James finished the first chapter. As he closed the book, several questions swirled in his mind. Can I try this in my life? If I start taking breaks, will my productivity really increase? He promised himself that he would experiment with this idea at work the next day. The following day at the office, James took a 20-minute break in the middle of his work. He truly enjoyed this break, had a cup of coffee, gazed at the trees outside the window, and simply relaxed. When he returned to his desk, he noticed a newfound clarity in his mind. He worked faster and more efficiently. This was a new experience for him. In the evening, on his way back home, James called Liam. "Hey, thanks for the book. I think there's something to it." Liam laughed and said, "See? I told you. Just have a little faith. You've only just started, wait till you read more chapters." James replied, "Yeah, I'm going to read the whole book now and implement what I learn in my life." That night, James prepared to jump into the next chapter. He realized that viewing rest and work as partners could actually transform his perspective. He felt this book might bring a turning point in his life. But this was just the beginning, there was much more to learn. James fully embraced the first lesson, rest and work are partners, in his new routine. He started taking small breaks at the office, and surprisingly, his productivity genuinely began to increase. But now his curiosity was directed toward the next chapter: deliberate rest is essential. With a cup of tea in hand, he opened the book and began reading. The author wrote that deliberate rest means rest that isn't merely passive. James found himself reflecting on the idea of being active and purpose-driven, something that could recharge him both mentally and physically. James wondered what deliberate rest was. His initial understanding of relaxation involved simply lying on the couch or watching TV. However, as he read further, he began to understand that the author considered passive relaxation merely a way to pass time. The book explained that deliberate rest involved engaging in activities that genuinely refreshed you. These could include hobbies, exercise, or even a short nap. The author mentioned that incorporating these activities into a structured daily routine was essential. James found this idea somewhat strange. He thought to himself, rest has to be scheduled. That sounds weird, but what's the harm in trying? The book provided fascinating examples, like famous authors such as Charles Dickens, who would go for long walks after 4 or 5 hours of writing because walking relaxed their minds and brought new ideas. Similarly, cricket players like LeBron James, one of the greatest basketball players in NBA history. LeBron is well known for his commitment to maintaining peak mental and physical performance. He practices meditation and mindfulness techniques to stay focused during high-pressure games. Additionally, he prioritizes quality sleep, often using short power naps to recharge between training sessions and games, which he credits as a crucial part of his recovery and focus strategy. James closed the book and wondered which activity could mentally and physically recharge him. The next morning, before heading to work, he decided to try jogging. On his first day at the park, he felt unsure. His body felt a bit tired at first, and the idea seemed like it might not work. However, after jogging, he was surprisingly energized. By the time he got to the office, his mood was completely fresh, and his focus at work was sharper. After work that evening, James remembered an old hobby he had abandoned, sketching. He used to love sketching as a child but had put it aside due to work and responsibilities. He pulled out his dusty old sketchbook and picked up a pencil. As he began sketching, he noticed that his stress seemed to melt away with every line he drew. Later that night, as he read another chapter of the book, the author explained that the greatest benefit of deliberate rest was that it allowed you to create a proper balance between work and life. Additionally, structured rest could significantly improve one's performance. James thought, this is really working for me. Jogging and sketching are making me feel great. James began making small changes to his routine. Every morning, he went jogging, and on weekends, he picked up his sketching again. Additionally, whenever he felt overwhelmed at work, he would try to take a 15-minute power nap. One day, while sitting at his desk, his boss came over and said, "James, the campaign you prepared last week was a huge hit with the client. It seems like your creativity and productivity have both improved significantly." James smiled as he thought, this is probably because of that book. That evening, he called Liam to share his thoughts. "Liam, I wanted to thank you. But it feels like every time I read a new chapter from this book, it changes something in my life." Liam laughed and replied, "I told you to trust the magic of deliberate rest. Keep reading and let me know what you learn." That night, James felt that he wasn't just improving his productivity, he was also making his life more meaningful. He resolved to continue implementing the lessons from the book into his life. This was just the beginning, though. There was still much to learn. The new definition of rest had already begun to change his mindset and lifestyle. James was becoming accustomed to his new routine. Every morning jog, every small break during the day, and every weekend spent sketching brought him a sense of balance and organization. He started to believe that finding the balance between work and rest was the real secret to productivity. However, James still had one question lingering in his mind: is there anything else I can do to further boost my efficiency? He dove into the next chapter of the book, which was titled, "Routine Provides Freedom." The author explained that a routine was more than just a monotonous set of habits, it gave a person real freedom. Alex wrote that consistent routines improve decision-making by reducing the need to deliberate over every small choice, thereby freeing the mind to focus on creative and productive endeavors. He connected this concept to what was called decision fatigue. James found himself deeply intrigued. While reading a book, James paused and thought, "What is this decision fatigue?" As he turned to the next page, it clicked for him that making small decisions all day, like what to wear, what to eat, or which task to prioritize first, gradually tires the mind. The author explained that having a structured routine could eliminate the need to overthink these daily choices. James learned that great achievers like Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg always wore the same type of clothing to conserve energy and avoid wasting it on such minor daily decisions. The author further elaborated that a structured schedule trains both the mind and body to perform at designated times. James thought to himself, maybe this is what happens to me too. Every morning, he wasted 10 minutes deciding what to wear and spent too much time prioritizing tasks at work. That night, James resolved to make a change in his life. He took out a diary and planned his entire schedule for the next day. 6:30 a.m., wake up and jog. 7:30 a.m., bath and breakfast. 8 a.m., get ready for work. 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., critical work tasks. 3:30 p.m. to 6 p.m., creative tasks. 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., sketching or a new hobby. 8 p.m., dinner and family time. 9:30 p.m. to 10 p.m., reading a book. 10:30 p.m., go to bed. James thought, if I follow this routine, maybe my life will become more organized. The next morning, he looked at his diary and tried to stick to each task as planned. When he noticed that he didn't have to overthink every single task, he felt good. His morning went smoothly, and he realized that tackling critical tasks in the morning, when his energy was at its highest, was very effective. That evening, as he was sketching, he felt no guilt about taking time to relax because he had efficiently completed his day's tasks according to his new routine. When Liam called him that evening, he mentioned, "James, have you noticed how routines give you so much freedom? I used to be stuck in decisions all the time, but now it feels like I have more time and energy." Liam smiled and said, "Exactly. That's the real magic of this book. Routines don't make life boring, they actually give you freedom." James now understood that routines weren't just for boring people, they were tools for creative individuals as well. When you let small decisions fall into a system, your mind can focus on making impactful, big-picture decisions. James planned out the next week's schedule, fixing time slots for every activity, work, relaxation, and hobbies, and found that his stress level was gradually decreasing. His performance at work also improved, and his boss noticed the consistency. During a meeting, his boss said, "James, your work is so consistent, it looks like you found a secret formula. The rest of the team could learn from you." Hearing this filled James with happiness, and he thought to himself, "This book really is a turning point in my life." That night, he picked up the book again and promised himself that he would not just read its lessons but apply them to his life and see where they could take him. But this was just the beginning. James had many chapters left to explore, and he was ready to learn more. The next chapter he started was the importance of deep play. As he read, he discovered that deep play involved engaging in enjoyable activities that were not just fun but also brain-boosting and problem-solving. James thought, "This is interesting, how is deep play different from just resting?" The author explained the difference with clarity. Rest is merely about relaxation, while deep play involves actively engaging your mind and body in activities like sports, music, or painting, which are both relaxing and intellectually rewarding. James found this idea logical. He recalled how much he enjoyed playing cricket as a child and how it brought him joy and focus. This concept of deep play seemed to fit into his life perfectly, and he felt inspired to explore this idea further. But among the busyness of work and responsibilities, he gave up on everything. Should he try something like this again? At that moment, he decided that he would make time for deep play in his routine as well. The next day, after returning from the office, James heard about a badminton court near his society. He called a friend and said, "Hey, let's go play badminton. It's been a long time since I did something like this." His friend was a bit surprised because James was always so immersed in work. But he said, "Okay, I'll meet you tonight." When James played badminton, he felt truly refreshed. While playing, he left all his work and responsibilities behind, just him and the game. When he returned home, his body was tired, but surprisingly, his mind felt energetic. James realized that deep play was truly special. Not only did it offer relaxation, but it also gave him a chance to awaken his creativity. The next day, he decided to view his hobby of sketching in the same way as deep play. He thought, "I should explore this more. Maybe I should even start painting." On Saturday, he bought paints and a canvas from a nearby art supply store. When he returned home and began painting, he felt as though he had entered an entirely new world. With every color and brushstroke, it felt as if he was expressing his emotions. During this time, he also noticed new ideas coming to his mind. Suddenly, he recalled a solution to an old office project. He was amazed that his subconscious mind had been working while painting. That night, he read the next section of a book. The author wrote that the greatest benefit of deep play is that when you disconnect from work to engage in such activities, your mind frees itself from stress and becomes better at absorbing new ideas. James reflected on his experiences and thought, "This is actually working." Badminton and painting had mentally and emotionally recharged him, and he could see the effects in his work as well. James added one more thing to his diary: deep play. He set aside 3 days a week for playing badminton and reserved the weekends for painting. His colleagues at work began to notice his creativity. One of them said, "James, your ideas are looking more innovative than ever. What are you doing differently?" James smiled and replied, "Just maintaining a balance between rest and play. You should try it too, it really works." One day, Liam asked him, "So, how did you like the new lesson in the book?" James replied, "Deep play was the missing piece in my life. Now I understand that just working and resting isn't enough, having fun and creativity should also have a special place in your life." Liam agreed, "You're right. But this is just a part of it. There's still so much to learn." James began to feel that his life had taken a new turn. Every chapter taught him something new, and he was incorporating these lessons into his life. But his journey was far from over. Every day, he found inspiration to become better and realized that many more lessons lay ahead. James slowly started seeing changes in all aspects of his life. He found freedom from routine, adopted deliberate rest, and rediscovered his creativity through deep play. Every new lesson brought a new perspective to his life. Before finishing the book, he thought, "What's next to learn?" He began reading the next chapter, "Rest is a Skill." The author introduced an interesting concept: rest is also a skill that can be practiced and developed with discipline. James had always thought of rest as something natural, but as he read, he began to realize that proper rest is, in fact, an art. The author explained that just like one needs practice and planning to become skilled at work, intentionality is necessary for proper rest. It's important to understand which activities genuinely restore you and which ones are merely a waste of time. James paused for a moment and reflected on his own experiences. He realized that aimlessly spending time without purpose didn't actually help him feel refreshed. But when he practiced deliberate rest, such as jogging, sketching, or playing badminton, it truly made him feel better. As he read further, he came across a suggestion from the author: every person should create their own rest toolkit, a list of activities that help mentally and physically recharge. James thought about this idea deeply. He realized that planning intentional rest could significantly improve his mental health and creativity. James thought, "This idea is great, I should create my own rest toolkit." That night, he took out his diary and pondered what truly brought him comfort. He wrote, 1. jogging, for the freshness and energy of the morning. 2. Sketching and painting, to calm the mind and boost creativity. 3. Badminton, for physical refreshment and enjoyment. 4. Reading books, for motivation and new perspectives. 5. Listening to music, to reduce stress. James decided that he would incorporate at least one of these activities from his toolkit every week. The next day, he structured his daily schedule by dedicating a specific time slot exclusively for rest. He noticed that this decision was positively affecting his entire routine. But the author had another important point: resting effectively requires practice. This meant that relaxing was itself a habit that could be improved through consistent practice. James connected this idea to his own life. He remembered when he first started jogging, he felt awkward, would tire quickly, and sometimes questioned whether this was for him. However, after weeks of practice, jogging became such a comforting experience that he couldn't imagine missing it. Similarly, when he first started sketching and painting, he was doubtful. Now, however, he was always excited to experiment with colors and brushes. James realized that rest could be treated as a skill, one that could be improved through discipline and consistent practice. One evening, while sitting in his room, I got a call from Liam. Liam asked, "So, what did the book teach you this time?" James replied, "It boosts both productivity and creativity." Liam laughed and added, "Exactly. Resting is also an art, and it's something worth learning." After ending the call, James wrote in his diary, "Today, I learned another important lesson: rest is not a waste of time. It's an investment in myself." Over the next few weeks, James tried to integrate this new lesson into his daily life. He noticed that whenever he engaged in his rest toolkit activities, he felt more energetic and focused. The best part was that he no longer felt guilty about taking breaks from work. His performance at the office began to show remarkable improvement. His colleagues and boss praised his efforts, and James realized there was still more wisdom hidden within the book. James was now completely immersed in the magic of the book. Every new lesson brought a change into his life, and he could feel a renewed energy that had likely been lost years ago. Yet, he knew there was still so much to learn. Turning the next page, James discovered that the upcoming chapter was about the science of napping. James smiled and thought, "Now, what will they say about the benefits of napping?" He couldn't help but recall the time in school when the teacher would scold him for sleeping lightly off in class. The author wrote that napping wasn't just for children or lazy people. Proper napping could improve productivity, creativity, and overall cognitive functioning. James continued reading and discovered that a 20 to 30-minute nap could enhance alertness and decision-making skills. He was surprised to learn that many great figures like Winston Churchill and Thomas Edison considered napping a vital part of their lives. James thought, "Churchill and Edison napped too. And I thought it was just a lazy habit." The book went on to explain the science behind napping. During a nap, the brain processes information and consolidates memories, making learning and experiences sink deeper into the mind. James tried to recall how, during his college days, he would nap before exams and perform better afterward. However, he never thought to do so in his office life. The author also explained that napping was a skill, one had to take naps at the right time and duration. Long naps could lead to grogginess, but 20 to 30-minute naps could make a person feel refreshed and alert. James felt that this lesson could have an important place in his life. He decided that he would try napping during his lunch breaks to see if it could truly enhance his productivity. The next day, when he began to feel drowsy after lunch, he wondered if taking a nap at his desk would really work. James thought, "If I incorporate this lesson into my daily routine, could my productivity actually improve?" With this decision in mind, James took his first step into implementing the lessons of rest, and the science of napping, into his daily life. James went to the sofa nearby, set an alarm for 20 minutes, and closed his eyes. Initially, it felt a bit strange, but as soon as he took a quick nap and woke up, he felt as though his mind had completely refreshed. He noticed that his concentration level was much better than before. The rest of his day went much more efficiently, and the best part was that he no longer felt exhausted. That evening, James called Liam and said, "Liam, this nap thing is truly amazing. I took a 20-minute nap in the office today, and it felt like my entire day started over again." Liam laughed and said, "I told you this book is magical. Now imagine if everyone understood this science, how much better their lives could be." From that day, James set aside a slot in his daily schedule for a quick nap. He noticed that not only was his energy level increasing, but his creativity and problem-solving skills were also improving. One day, during a major presentation at the office, James presented his ideas so confidently and creatively that his boss immediately congratulated him. His boss said, "James, the clarity and creativity in your ideas stand out from the rest of the team. How do you manage to stay so sharp?" James smiled and said, "Just some work, some rest, sir. And taking a quick nap has become my secret weapon for productivity." That night, he revisited the book that had introduced him to this concept. He read a part that explained how NASA pilots and astronauts also use naps to boost their performance. This convinced James that taking a nap wasn't just a habit but a scientifically proven tool. James wrote in his diary, "The ideal time for a nap is after lunch when energy levels are naturally low. Nap durations should be between 20 and 30 minutes at most. Choose a comfortable place." He noticed that his stress levels were decreasing, his decision-making skills were improving, and, most importantly, multitasking no longer felt like a challenge. James realized that napping wasn't just about relaxation but a skill that could boost productivity and creativity. He embraced this lesson wholeheartedly and found it transformative. But the book wasn't finished yet. James knew there were many more lessons to learn, and he was ready to live each one to its fullest. He vowed that he would finish the entire book, chapter by chapter, learning everything along the way. He moved on to the next chapter, titled Embrace Boredom. As he read, he found himself laughing. He thought, boredom is also a learning tool. His mother used to tell him in childhood, "Don't just sit idle, do something." But now this book suggested that boredom could be beneficial. The author explained that boredom meant allowing one's mind to become unstimulated for a while. This state of mind wandering often fosters creativity. James wondered, but how does mind wandering connect to avoiding work? The author elaborated that constant distractions, social media, and stimuli prevent the brain from recharging. But when the mind is given time to rest and be still, it begins to search for new ideas and solutions on a subconscious level. James found this logical. He realized that whenever he sat without distractions, his mind would frequently come up with new and creative solutions. James learned that many great ideas came from states of boredom. For instance, Isaac Newton conceptualized gravity while sitting alone in a garden and allowing his mind to wander. James thought to himself, well, Newton could do this, but how can I try this in my own life? My schedule is already so packed. He decided to give it a try the next day by setting aside 15 minutes in his schedule for a boredom break. During this time, he stayed away from any distractions, no phone, no books, no work, just him and silence. At first, it felt strange. His mind kept urging him to check his phone or do something, but as the minutes passed, his mind began to calm down. And then, as though by magic, he remembered a solution to an old project he had been struggling with. He was astonished. He immediately acted on this revelation, amazed by how his mind had solved the problem all on its own during this simple exercise of allowing himself to be bored. James knew that this would become another powerful tool in his journey of personal growth and productivity. James wrote in his diary that he realized boredom truly gave his mind the chance to roam freely. After that day, James made it a part of his daily routine. He began spending 15 to 20 minutes each day in complete detachment from any activity, and every time he did so, he would come up with new and creative ideas. One evening, Liam asked him, "So what was the lesson from the book this time?" James laughed and replied, "This time, the book taught me something I never even thought about. Being bored is actually a skill, and it boosts creativity. I used to think boredom was pointless, but now I understand that it's the best way for my mind to relax and recharge." Liam said, "Exactly right, but you also need to understand that embracing boredom isn't easy. Our brains have gotten so used to always doing something. Stopping that habit and learning to embrace boredom takes practice." James realized that Liam was right. He revisited the part of the book that talked about how boredom helps increase creativity, much like music does for some people. His team at the office had started to admire his creative ideas and problem-solving approaches, focusing on innovative solutions. This was scientifically proven, and it was genuinely working for him. That evening, James wrote in his diary, "A boredom break of 15 to 20 minutes every day without distractions and no devices has truly been beneficial. Embracing boredom is not just good for my work but also improves my overall mental health." So friends, this was our book summary for today. How did you like it? Let us know in the comments below, and thank you for listening to the summary till the end.